And we're live. What Pastor and I just talking through, there's just so much information these days. We've started our new vision series where Pastor is talking about how all of our all of the mission statement, values, measures, how this leads into practically where we're going in the future. And then last night we had what's going to be the first of many of these kind of events. What's called our Inspire Leadership Conference. We brought in hundreds of leaders from the church that were able to be there and started to teach them about what some of the things that we believe God's leading us to do in the future. I thought it was a really successful
It was
event.
a great meeting, and the room was packed. I was so pleased with all of our leadership being there.
I'm
it was
hugely
a
excited.
great evening. I was inspired.
I was inspired too. That's what we prayed for. Pastor Barry and the rest of the discipleship department did an excellent job planning everything out. I mean, that was our first. That was kind of the pilot. You know, that was our first type of that sort of event, a first event of that type, and we're going to do more in the future. It like we were saying before, it can be kind of tough to figure out where to start. But let me just list off a couple of the dozen things that we talked about yesterday, because obviously it began with your sermon in the morning.
Yeah.
And you've been open about this, how like I know that you like to take a pericope of scripture, and not just you like, but you believe that's what the Spirit requires of us in preaching. But during this short season, we're going more through the vision. And you gave us 5 really, really big points. Now I'm going to list them off.
Okay.
So don't cut in yet. I'm just going to list them
I won't.
off, and then we're going to go back through. You talked about how we're committed as a church to advancing the kingdom,
Yep.
awakening the next generation,
Yeah.
committed to building spiritually healthy homes, which I think that's probably where we need to dig in the most, committed to develop disciples and deepen discipleship.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, the missional piece, impact the community, the region, and the world.
Yeah.
The Spirit really led you to putting those particular 5 points
Yeah.
together.
A week ago today, the Lord just kind of put all of those 5 things. He just kind of gave me, and then I spent the rest of the week just trying to, put all of the things that we've talked about, the things that we put up on the board. And
Yeah, our vision
all of
frame.
that, just kind of running all of that under these 5 areas.
It really is like we all feel like we're drinking from a fire hose.
Oh, my word, yeah.
In terms of like fitting all of this together. But I think the beauty of it is that we're playing the long game here.
Yeah, that's right.
You talked last week about how you feel like this is the beginning of something that's going to unfold over 7 or 10 years.
Yes, yeah. 3 to 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, so that there's really no rush as we're figuring these things out, and we got to start somewhere.
Yeah, we do. And in fact, there were some things that came out of the the evening of inspiration last night that I want to get to work on today.
Yeah.
At least talking about that deals with special needs children and special needs families.
That was new, because that's something you feel like the Lord's
Yeah,
laid on your heart.
it has been something that's been on my mind for a number of years, and I really feel like here we have a number of families with special needs children, and we have the possibility and the potential of doing something here in this area that nobody else is really doing, and that is to have a ministry. You wish you could minister to hundreds, but we can't. We have to start small, which, Scripture says, don't despise the day of small things. Start small, and we'll work from there.
Well, and I liked what you said last night. This was in reference to the school in general, not just to special needs education, but just that, yes, we know that other churches are doing things. Other local churches, some have really vibrant special needs ministries.
Yeah.
Great. Well, there's waiting lists for all these things. Like, there is still a great need, and there's still a huge impact we could make in the community along those lines.
Yeah, in the aspect of this church that is different than 10,000 other churches is that there is a spirit of community inside this church that is unique. I mean, really unique.
Well, and you opened the message with that. You said, this is unique, so what would it look like if we took this with us
that's right.
into the larger community?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways you could talk about what that looks like. But I tell you, brother, that third point about we're committed to building spiritually healthy homes, that resonated with me. And then when we went to our table discussions afterwards, that's the one that seemed to grab people the most. So many of the women in the room spoke up and said, hey, the school, we love it. Giving to missions, we're super excited about it. But the thing that grabbed us the most was thinking about the men being effectively discipled to be spiritual leaders in the home.
Yeah. You know, every man is to be the priest of his family.
Right.
I had that modeled in my home. And it brought, I didn't grow up in a dysfunctional family. My daddy saw that it functioned. And I think that's exactly what families are desperately in need of today. Men need help knowing how to do that.
That's true.
Women long to see their husbands take the spiritual lead. And children are desperately in need of seeing a father who is a spiritual leader, who is a spiritual father. There's so many things that are out right now. One of them happens to be an article on religious life in the home is on a massive decline. You take that. We're not talking to our kids about Scripture. We're not talking to them about Christ. We're not living it out in front of them in the home. You take that, and there is this absolute, well, according to some researchers, some in the behavioral sciences say it is epidemic, and that is mental health issues in children. Do you know that there's 100% increase in suicide in children from the age of 10 to 14, which is staggering. What do you know about anything from 10 to 14 years of age? You don't know, you know nothing about life. How could something be so bad that a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old would end their life? But the statistics are absolutely alarming. Researchers out there are just screaming, somebody's got to pay attention to this.
Yeah, I hope that what we do over these next 3, 5, 7 years will help people pay attention.
I do too. I do too. If you can't see the correlation between a decrease of religious Christian teaching in the home and the rise of mental health issues in children, you just are not looking. You know, 1 in 5 children have a mental health issue. 1 in 5. So.
Well, it gives further credence to our need for some kind of special needs. I mean, not all special needs are created equal. There's like a huge spectrum.
Now there are always those with special needs that, have, I'm just talking about the emotional state of children.
Yeah, and it is really sad. You can trace it back to what's just the spiritual leadership in the home.
Yep.
So how do you see that working out in this next year, for instance? Because Bless One is our big focus, which we need to talk about that for a couple of minutes. Is there any way, just off the top of your head, how can the men of their homes at Valleydale, because I know a lot of them listen to this, how can they use Bless One to spiritually lead in their homes in 2020?
Well, they can take the lead in it, and they can begin to seriously pray, God, how do you want me, who do you want me to begin to build a relationship to share with? It may be a brother-in-law, maybe a brother, maybe a father, maybe a co-worker, maybe somebody like that. But if the family sees the dad taking the lead in this, they will then be swept along with it as well. They will, and the thing about that is they will see the husband taking or the dad taking a spiritual lead in something. Now, the success of this is not do you win somebody to Christ.
That's a good point.
The success in this is whether or not you do it, whether or not you share.
So men that are listening, begin with prayer. Begin listening to your neighbors. Schedule a time with that neighbor that you have an acquaintance with. Schedule a time where you actually get together and share a meal. If you see a need,
That's right.
Oh, yeah, right. Whenever we say eat, amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
If you see a need, serve them. If there's an opening in conversation, share with them. And like Pastor's saying, your family will follow in that. And you guys might, our goal with this has really been like that even a family could bless one.
Right.
But like my wife already has a couple of other women that she's in the process of building relationships
That's great.
with. So I think that the Lord is going to lead us to a few people, and I think that could be the story for
Yeah,
many
yeah,
families
yeah.
over the course of this year.
I think the other thing, and the real thing too, is in our generation has a real struggle with this. Is we're going to make a commitment, which means I am going to be persistent for the man. I am going to be persistent. I'm going to attend when men get together. When we do, and we're going to do some of these things this year.
More events, yeah.
We're going to break down into different groups, discipleship groups with men. I am going to get a part, and I'm going to actually begin to build a relationship with some of my brothers in Christ. That's huge. That's necessary. Men need the company of other men.
Yeah, we do. Well, I mean, we all need accountability.
Yep.
And that's, to me, that was, and we'll probably have to finish things up here in the interest of time, but Bless One is a tool for accountability for our entire church.
Yeah.
The likes of which that we haven't seen in a really long time. You can look at the history of how, like, the whole counting numbers thing, went out of vogue. Like, no, we don't count numbers. We're only spirit led. That's what we say. That's what people in the Baptist church wanted to say for a while. Well, you throw the baby out with the bathwater, and suddenly it's like this free form, organic. There's no actual accountability.
There's heresy on the extremes.
Indeed. So now we're in this season where we're looking to see each one of these letters, BLESS, done 1,000 times. And in order for us to know whether that's happening, we're using our app. Get your app back out, Pastor. We're using the app where we're going to be checking in for each one of these instances. Now, a couple things to remember as you find your Blessed One. Yeah, thank you, Vanna White. Right there. So you're going to check in. I trust that we've already had 1,000 people begin with prayer. So you need to check in and talk about that. And you can, if you feel comfortable, you can even share with us who you're praying for. Two things, pro tips before we close. One is, like Pastor said, we're celebrating your progress in this, not your perfection.
Yes.
We recognize that not every conversation is going to lead to a conversion.
That's good. That's really good. No, that's just, listen at you being so alliterative this early in the morning.
Yeah.
It's just snappy.
It's in my blood. I heard my dad do it for 30 years. So progress over perfection. Not every conversation will lead to a conversion. I had to repeat it. It's good communication. Tell them what you told them. And here's the other thing. Your Blessed One, it doesn't necessarily have to be like your neighbor that you've never met before. Like Pastor said, it might be a family member that you see a lot that is like your neighbor, and it's someone that the Lord has placed in front of you that you can build a deeper relationship.
Pray about it. That's what I'm telling you. Just begin by prayer. Lord, who? Just ask God who. And listen, if he doesn't put it on your heart by 5 o'clock this afternoon, you know what? Pray tomorrow.
Pray tomorrow.
It doesn't have to be done by this weekend. Ask God. God will, and it's in a unique way, God will uniquely lay someone on your heart and will show you someone with whom you can begin to build this relationship with and eventually share the gospel with.
So we're praying for all of you. We're praying for the men, the women, and the children. We're praying for Valleydale Church. You guys, if this has been helpful for you, and I hope that it has, please remember to subscribe and click the notification bell. We want as many people to see these as possible. And for all of our friends who weekly watch and or listen to this podcast, please share it with other people in the church. There are sadly a lot of people that don't even realize that this kind of fun thing is happening. So go and do. Trust that we're praying for you, and we'll see you on Wednesday night.